Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking, and this is Madness at Midnight. Now, Madness at Midnight is a game from one of my absolute favorite designers. Well, for me, there are three designers. Well, I shouldn't say there are three designers. There's lots of designers out there that I really, really enjoy their games. But for me, there are like the triumvirate, if you will. And the first two are going to be pretty easy for you to guess, and you probably listen to my podcasts or my shows or my reviews or whatever. But they go Kevin Wilson, Richard Launius, which are pretty obvious, and then my third person, for whatever reason, is Bruno Faidutti. I don't know, I just love his games. But anyway, regardless, this is a new game from Richard Launius, and I am lucky enough to have met him and Kevin Wilson and Bruno Faidutti, for that matter. And I greatly enjoyed meeting these gentlemen. And but I mean, Richard Launius was like, I remember one time I got a phone call from him. I'm sorry, I got this is a little bit of a humble brag, but I mean, it was one of those cool moments where he actually called me up and thanked me for saying something about one of his games a long time ago, and it kind of spawned a friendship or whatever. And he hasn't completely hit. There's been a few games of his that I haven't completely and totally enjoyed and or not liked at all, for that matter. But for the most part, I generally enjoy his games. They're highly thematic, they have lots of chaotic and random elements, and they tell me a story each time I play. And that is the type of game that is kind of my bread and butter. And so when I heard about this game from Mr. B Games, and I was asked if I'd like to take a look at it, I was very, very interested to do so, and I am not disappointed. Midnight at Madness is a game for 2 to 4 players. Each player runs a dark and evil cult that is trying to bring about the end of the world. Now, that sounds really grim and gritty, and the game is kind of grim and gritty, and the artwork is kind of macabre or whatever, but I didn't really feel like it was, like, overly, like, sensationally evil or anything like that. It was very... I can't compare the two games in any way, shape, or form, but I felt very Blood Rage-y while I played this. If I had, like, dice while I played Blood Rage, I kind of felt that same way. I always felt like everybody was kind of fighting with each other and just kind of messing with each other, and also everybody's trying to control the areas in the board and trying to, you know, make them work for them and give them special powers and abilities and what have you. Now, there's no card drafting or anything like that. This is a dice chucking game, so it's just that area control aspect of Blood Rage that I kind of felt the same way while I was playing this one. So regardless, just put that Blood Rage comparison out. Just put it away, because you know, if somebody's going to go, it's nothing like that, you know, and you're absolutely right. But it had elements that made me think that. So anyway, regardless, let me show you how this game is played. I have a prototype, keep that in mind, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts for Midnight at Madness. All right, awesome. Hey everybody, this is Madness at Midnight, and I do apologize. What I have in front of you is a prototype that I was sent. The final version of the game probably won't have these words crossed off with marker or anything like that. So just keep that in mind as you're staring at this and wondering how the game is played, which I'm now going to show you. Now I'm going to give you kind of a brief little overview of what you're seeing here. All of these spots are different locations here in Arkham that your cultists are going to be moving about. You can see your cultists are both these guys and these guys. I've set up a 2-player game. The prototype, I didn't get yellow cultists. Apparently, the Brothers of the Yellow Sign like to wear black robes instead of yellow robes, but regardless, it works just fine. So, like, there's these, some of these spots have these decks of cards, and those are things that you can collect. Here are, this is like common items. These are kind of like mystic items or special magical things, and these would be spells. And so Miskatonic University, you get spells. The River Docks are where all the like arcane and crazy things come in off of boats, and down here in the Merchant District is just where technically you would go and buy something. Okay, so you might notice that there are some of these cards over here. This is the East Side Church location. And at the East Side Church location, people are buried with things, right? And so one of the things you can do down here is you actually go and you rob the grave. And so then you get to take cards from the bottom of the deck, so you can't tell what you're getting, and then be able to take them and be able to use them. Now, it's important to know whenever you discard an item, some items will say they're just persistent, you don't have to get rid of them, or spells, what have you. They are put in the graveyard. And so then you replenish the things that people have been buried with. Theoretically, maybe like your cultists have died with that arcane item or whatever, and they were buried with it, and they're there. And so you can go ahead and dig up your old buddies and at least get back that magical amulet that you wanted. But anyway, this deck here is the plot points. Plots are one of the main ways that you are going to get victory points as the game progresses. You get victory points by completing something that the plot asks you to do. So like here this one says control of the Black Lodge. And it says 2 victory points in the secret chambers. Dark rites are performed to obscene gods. And so the Black Lodge is this spotlight right there. And so if you have control of it, meaning that you have more cultists than anybody else in that location, you'll get this 2 victory points. Now it says you gain plus 1 victory point if you dominate it. Now dominating means that you're the only person in that location. Theoretically, you probably killed off the other people that were there. And I'll explain how fighting works in just a little bit. But if you manage to dominate it, you can gain a token from Forbidden Lore, which are these special little tokens that'll give you little powers that you can spend. Like this one says, you can roll 2 extra combat dice and so forth. And of course, you shuffle those up and keep them face down so you can't see them. Now, so if you ever take a plot, and that's like the only plot that gets taken, you will take the top plot off at the beginning of the next round, and you'll turn it over and you put the other one in that location. And people will take these plots and put them in front of them so they can represent the victory points that they've earned. You also will track it with this track here. So if you ever have a turn where nobody gets any plots, you will lose the plot on the end, and then you'll slide these down, and then you'll replenish it like so. And so, so you'll always, if like, for whatever reason, the plots are just unable to be claimed, you will replenish that little line over there. So you might have noticed that there's these locations. They have this tile here. You'll notice up at the top here, there's this like little moon icon. At the beginning of each turn, you will roll a die. On a 4, 5, or 6 means that you'll flip the icon, and then you'll see that the moon has gone to a different phase, and then there's an entirely different option that is going to be available to you at the Black Lodge. See over here, there's a spot where you put your action die. And it says return 3 cultists from the dead box. Whenever your cultists are killed, and this includes your cult leader as well, your cult leader will have a special little icon like this. That's for the Brotherhood of the Yellow Sign, and here's for the cult of Dagon. Is that guy, and there's 4 complete cults, and I'll show those here in just a second. But I didn't want to dirty up the board. I want to be able to see what you're seeing here. But return 3 cultists from the dead box or your cult board to the Black Lodge, and so you'd be able to bring people back from the dead at the lodge meeting. Or gain power. Pay 2 mythos, and that's a roll that you'll get on these dice. I haven't even gotten to the dice yet. Woo, dice. Then you put 1 cult upgrade into play, and also I'll explain that in a little bit as well. But then if you flipped it over, here you have a location for each person, and it's a lodge meeting during the location scoring the midnight phase. The cult that controls the lodge gains 1 Forbidden Lore token. That's pretty much the same over here. But then it says service to the Ancient One. You may activate a new ceremony card for your cult, placing a new one if none is active, or replacing the current ceremony, or you may remove 1 active investigator token. So it's just, these things are going to be changed. And I realize that you may not understand what those things mean, but just keep in mind that those will flip many times during the game. And so a location that you really want to be able to use, or a power you want to use, just may not be there, unfortunately, the next time you check. So like, here's Hangman's Hill. Where it says during the scoring of Midnight Phase, gain 1 Madness and 1 Forbidden Lore token. But then you go over here, and it's a different part, Ancient Power. And so something different. And then you have to, like, it's like you roll a die, gain 1 Forbidden Lore, and rolls a die on an odd number, you gain a victory point, and you kill one of your cultists. But, so, and it's cool. Hangman's Hill is where you're mostly going to be summoning your monsters, obviously, which are obviously pretty cool. Now, each cult is going to get a player board. Here's the Order of Dagon, the Brothers of the Yellow Sign, the Starry Wisdom. I like this one. And then the Cult of the Skull, so I think that's Hastur, if I remember correctly. But anyway, so each one's going to have this, and you're going to have your different you people that you have, your leader, your cultists, and then your monster. And then you have these 4 spots because of the fact that you have 4 locations that are available for your cult upgrades. You can see here where notice how the Acolyte has a move of 1, a fight of 1, and 1 life. And he has no special movement, no special attack. But here, if you upgrade him, he can spend an action dice to move any number of hybrids from one water location to another, and then spend 1 mythos to give your hybrids ambush. An ambush allows you to attack first before anybody else can attack. It's one of the cool abilities. But so then that's how you would, if you do that upgrade, you go ahead and put that in there. Upgrades can be gained through actions on the board, but you get an upgrade when you get to 3 victory points, 6 victory points, and 9 victory points. And so you can add those up fairly quickly. And so you notice that there's a spot for active dice when you're going to roll dice, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. When you roll your dice, you put all your active dice in here, and as you take the actions, you move them over into the spent location. You can, as an action, move a die over here to save a die. And usually, those dice are ones that are going to have the Mythos token on it, because usually Mythos is kind of like a resource that you're going to need to perform certain rituals, cast certain spells, those sorts of things. And so you're going to save them until a later time, or maybe perhaps the next turn. You'll notice that there's a track down here for your Madness. Now, technically, Madness goes to 5. It obviously went higher in an earlier prototype. I do apologize for that. But when you get to Madness is something that is both good and bad. Like when you get higher up on the Madness chart, you can't do certain things. So like certain things where you have to take a Madness to summon a monster. If you've maxed out your Madness at 5, you can't summon a monster anymore. So if your monster gets killed, he doesn't go to the dead box. You have to summon another one. So you have to reduce your Madness, and of course you have to go to the Arkham Sanatorium you send your cultists there, and they check themselves in. At the end of the turn, for every cultist you have hanging out in the Sanitarium, you'll reduce your Madness by 1, which is good, but it kind of stinks because you can't really do anything else. But if you do, and this is 6 Madness, so but just replace that with 5. So you have you can spend 1 Mythos anytime to summon your monster to a location. You may do this even if your monster is in play. So you have, like when you're the Esoteric Order of Dagon, when you've maxed out your Madness, you do have kind of a cool special ability once that happens, but it comes with a price. Now, the other big thing that Madness does is when you actually do get to roll your dice, and for your actions, you can spend a Madness to re-roll certain dice to try to get a better reaction. And if you don't like those, you can re-roll them again. If you don't like those, you can re-roll them again. You can re-roll your dice, and you don't have to re-roll all of them. You can just say, I want to re-roll these 2. Okay, I want to re-roll this 1, and so forth. And you're going to re-roll those dice. For every Madness that you spend, you can do that re-roll. And you'll understand, like, later on, like, you really need a fight die, or you really need a Mythos result. And you'll need those to be able to get into those locations. Now, you might have noticed that there's this magnifying glass. If you've played other Arkham-type games, the magnifying glass, as you well know, signifies the investigator. And you might have noticed this white pawn right here, the investigator. Whenever somebody rolls on their action roll any investigation dice, they have to add tokens equaling the number of investigation dice to this investigation box down here. So like if I rolled those 2, I'd put those 2 on there. And they get to move the investigator. So maybe you're going to move to the Black Lodge, and so they're going to hang out over here. Or, you could move them over to the river docks. But you got to follow the lines, obviously, that you have. You can't just move willy-nilly. You have to, travel along the path. And so when you move to those spots, the reason that is important is the investigator will try to fight the cultists at the location they end up on. And if they have a certain number of investigator tokens over in this location, for 2 players it's 7, 3 players 8, 4 players 9, they will then actually, just like in other games, they will close the gate, basically, because these are places where there's otherworldly essence coming into the world, and so they will close the gate. And if they manage to do that, they will close the gate, they'll put the Elder Sign on there, and they will kill all the cultists on that spot, and they will claim it as long as they have that number of tokens over in this location. If they don't have that number of tokens in that location, one person will flip one of these over, and they'll look on the back, and they'll see that it has a 3. Now, what does that mean? The 3 means that they will roll 3 attack dice and attack each group of cultists at once. And every 5 or 6 will kill one. So they attack green first. No, nothing. They attack black. Nothing. So in this case, they didn't manage to do any damage, but you can see that, like, if you leave the investigators alone for too long, they will eventually, start moving about the board and start shutting down gates. Now, if they do shut down a gate because they got to 7 tokens, you do remove those tokens. They don't get to move to another spot and close a gate or whatever. If they manage to get 3 Elder Signs on the board, they then call in the feds, basically, who swoop in and cause, basically, the underworld doesn't happen. And what happens then, instead of the person that's in the lead for victory points, whoever has the least number of victory points actually wins, because they can go into hiding, and the other ones are, captured, executed, taken off to the crazy house or what have you. And so your cult is the only one left behind that manages to kind of wait in the weeds for the next time that these things will happen. So I've kind of jumped around a little bit, so let me just kind of talk about how the whole turn occurs. So basically, during the sunrise session, like basically the rounds of the game follow like just a normal day or whatever. So to begin with, you have what's called the sunrise phase. So you affect the plots like I talked about earlier. If anybody has any exhausted cards, because you'll gain equipment and stuff that will exhaust when you use it, so you unexhaust those things. After the investigator has done its attack, you lay it down, so then you stand it up. And then if you have any saved dice, they're moved to the available dice pool on your board. And then you roll the die to see if you flip the spots. Remember, on a 4, 5, or 6, you would flip it. So it's the 1, so we don't flip it. And then during the day phase, that's when you roll your dice. Begin with the first player and going clockwise. For every investigation, they add an investigation token onto the investigation spot over here. And then you have the option to re-roll. If you roll more investigations, like on your dice, you keep adding them. So that's where re-rolling can actually come back and bite you a little bit. So after you've done all that, then you will spend your action dice. If you want to, like, you use the hand, like some dice will have more than one thing. They'll have a hand and a foot. The foot moves, the hand actually activates it. But if you want to do it, you go ahead and you put the little hand on that spot. And obviously, once you've taken the location, then you've taken that spot. Nobody else can come in and put a die, on top of that or something to use it. They've done. Now, movement is a special thing where you get 3 movement actions, or whatever number is. And like in this one, it had a 3. When you have movement actions, you will move cultists, and then or your monsters or whatever, like according to their move rate. So like in this case, like priest and acolyte and the deep one are all move 1. But if you look at the Brothers of the Yellow Sign here, they're the young Byaki, the creature, can move of 3, and it can carry 1 cultist or leader from a location to the new location it goes to. So that 1 movement would move the monster 3 spots. So just keep that in mind. Not everything is 1 movement. You can do something where you just move all 3 action points. You can split them up however you want. You can even use an entire action point to bring one of your cultists back from the dead and put it back in your area that you're getting ready to activate it. And then you can even use that one to place them back on the board. And so then you could use that one again to move it. So you could bring one back from the dead, put it on the board, and actually move it into a location if you so desire. So the actions that show like the little box there, the little like explosion, that is a fight. Whenever one person gets to place a fight die down on a location, after that nobody else can do the fight. Basically, they're initiating the fight in that spot, and they're gonna have the fight with you can't fight the investigators on purpose. The investigators just fight, and you kind of like, you know, just you'll do battle that way. Like they just kind of take you out or try to destroy you. You know, so you can't like seek them out, if you will. But you can seek out the other cultists and try to take care of that. If for whatever reason you want to pass because you don't want to do any more actions, because each person kind of takes one action and goes around, you can, but then you're done. You can't do any more. So if you do combat is pretty straightforward. The only thing about, remember, combat is 6s explode, and that goes for everybody, investigators and cultists alike. What you do is you total up the amount of fight that you have in the location that you're at, and you just roll those dice. And so if we had, so maybe green had a fight result right here, and they have 3 against the 2 from the Brothers of the Yellow Sign. So they're gonna go ahead and roll 3 attack dice on the 2 that are there. And so they roll, and they get 2 hits. And so then, obviously, they'd have the 2 hits, and then the other player will roll their attack dice as well. Now in this location, like you'd actually see like the 6s would explode, and I get to re-roll those dice and see what I get here. Let's see what I get. So we'd have those 2 successes, and then a 3 and a 4. Those do not succeed. And now me, or well, maybe not me, but the Brothers of the Yellow Sign, they get to roll their 2 dice. Now, if you have like an ambush ability or something like that that allows you just to do the damage and remove them, that happens. If both people have ambush, then neither one gets ambush. But okay, so then you roll these 2. See what I get here? 2 4s. That's no good. And so what's going to happen is these 2 will be killed, and then they will go over here and they will be destroyed. And then actually leaving these 3 with dominance in that spot, and because of the fact that they don't have anybody there to fight. Now, if there was other cults there, they could choose to fight those as well. You get to pick who you are fighting when you are the one who puts the fight die down. The battle ends after 1 single round, and damage is actually applied by the person that is taking the damage. Now, this is a very important thing. Some things will have extra lives, like the cult leader there, you can see has 2 lives. The monster there has 2 lives. You do get to divvy up the damage that's done to you, but you don't get to like do half damage to your people. So, like, if my cult leader had been there, and my 2 guys here, and he's got 2 lives, and they did 2 damage, I couldn't say, well, I'm going to take 1 damage to my cult leader, and then I'm going to take 1 damage to my cultist. You know, I'd have to take all 2 damage to my cult leader and actually send him to the graveyard, or send the 2 cultists to the graveyard. You can't just do like a 1 point of damage type of situation. So, no game in the game, if you will. So, also, I should mention that there are cards and things like that within the game that do affect the rules and affect combat, and when you do those things, you just have to mention them before you begin combat. So, like, you know, like dynamite. Discard the start of combat, roll 5 dice, you know, and so, like, you can do that. Just to say the truth, or like, you know, your guys have Tommy guns, if you will, you know, stuff like that. So, so when you declare combat, then both people can start, like, you know, showing their cards or what have you, and revealing what they have to, you know, affect the combat in some way. So after all that is done, after you're then going to figure out who controls which locations, you're then going to figure out if anybody gets to claim any of these plot points, adjust the victory points, if you will, and then move on to the next round and go on with the next process, and so on and so forth. Like I said, I mean, in my introduction, I knew, I mean, it was a Richard Launius game. It was a Richard Launius game about Cthulhu. I knew I was going to have a lot of fun playing it, and lo and behold, I did. It's kind of fun playing the bad guy and actually trying to bring about the end of the world in a Arkham Horror-esque game instead of playing the other side. But, you know, that goes without saying. It's always fun to be the bad guy, right? All right, well, more on that with my final thoughts, which I'll do right now. Alright, you should have a really good idea of how the game is played, and yes, that is a post-human box. Great game too. But anyway, so this is Midnight at Madness, and like I said, it's fun to play the bad guy. When I was growing up, I always thought the bad guy wrestlers had the coolest job. I mean, they're like evil, cackling, maniacal, completely one-dimensional characters, but they were oh so good at it, and I greatly appreciated what they brought. And there is something wonderful about just being evil sometimes. And I mean, this kind of feels like shades of evil, though, because like you're up against the other players. You all want to bring about the end of the world. It's just you want your end of the world to be the one that's the best, right? You want Dagon to eat the world instead of Shub-Niggurath. I mean, Dagon's going to be able to destroy the world a lot better, right? So I love that aspect of it. I also love the fact that you are going to be like basically chucking your cultists away left and right, allowing them to die, basically because of the fact that in a lot of ways it's just an attrition type of thing, where it's like, I gotta keep shoving you into that monster over there, just because I gotta make sure that the other player, doesn't establish like a dominant strategy over in that section of the board or taking those spots, because I got to prevent them from taking those victory points. And I do apologize, I did misspeak. It is 7, 9, and 13 for the tokens, the investigator tokens, not 7, 8, 9. I don't know why I was thinking that. But 7, 9, and 13, 4 players, you actually have to have 13 investigator tokens on the board for them to close a thing. So, but remember, you got 4 people rolling a dice at that point. And so, if somebody keeps re-rolling their dice, they're eventually going to keep rolling those investigator symbols, and you're just going to bring about the end. And that actually is one of the best parts of the game, where you're watching somebody re-roll their dice because they get those investigator results, and you're just like, and you're watching them roll it again. You're like, what are you doing? And they roll it again. What are you doing? And it's even possibly maybe a strategy if you haven't done really well throughout the game, and you want like the the feds to come in. Yeah, that's a viable strategy. If you're not winning, start pushing for that. Start really hoping to get more investigator magnifying glasses to show up. And it's even better, like we played a game actually, my buddy Jason won, because everybody else was re-rolling, because Andy he was losing, but one more Elder Sign, and the game was over, and he was going to win. And so it came down to Jason, my buddy Jason, and he rolled, and he got 2 investigator results. And so that was going to cause us all to lose. And so he re-rolled them again, and he rolled 2, and that was his last bit of madness. And he re-rolled 2 more magnifying glasses. And yeah, but see, that's really awesome about the games like this, is that they have that epic ending to them. And it's just like you can hear the sirens of the feds showing up and raiding our warehouses and whatever, where all of our dark evil ceremonies are taking place, and keeping those from happening. And I'm talking about it now, and I'm chuckling. Yeah, I lost the game. I was in a really good spot to win that one, but that was a great ending. And I love games like this that have those great endings. So there you go. Basically, if you're going to know whether or not you're going to like a game like this, I can tell you the game is functionally sound. It looks amazing. It has a great little element of story and mystery and mythos to it. And if you're a fan of Richard Launius, and if you're a fan of the whole Arkham mythos genre of games, this is a big time winner. So there you go. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, this is me, the Undead Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye bye.